Welcome to the 9 News Business Buzz. I'm Ryan Frazier, 9 News business expert. For years, Colorado was celebrated as one of the elite states for business, a place where companies came to. But there's a massive reality that has just hit the fan. In CNBC's newly released 2026 America's Top States for Business rankings, Colorado dropped to 25th in the nation. We're getting more expensive and our infrastructure is struggling to keep up. Joining me to break down what the data says and what it means for everyday Coloradans and local businesses is Scott Cohn, special correspondent for CNBC. Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ryan. Good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on the program. Scott, you've been following this data for decades. You have not only the current data, but the historical perspective. When you look at Colorado plunging from just number 4 in 2022 to 11 just last year to 25th today, what jumps off the page?
Well, part of the issue this year is not necessarily anything that Colorado is doing differently. It's just that some of the standards out there have changed, and what we're measuring changes along with it, because we always try and make sure that we're measuring the things that matter the most to business. So the biggest drop in Colorado was in the infrastructure category. That's one of our 10 categories of competitiveness in our top state study. And this year, for the first time, because of everything that you're hearing about data centers, and not just data centers, but the need for shovel-ready sites for other sorts of brick and mortar activities, there is a great need for electricity and a great need for water. So we looked at that a lot more closely this year than we did in the past, not just looking at the reliability of the electric grid, which Colorado does pretty well on, but also overall generating capacity, which Colorado does not do as well on cost, which Colorado does not do as well on. And then as far as water is concerned, where in the past we looked at just the water infrastructure, which is not great in Colorado, but kind of in the middle, we also are looking now at availability, and that is an issue in western states and particularly in Colorado. So that's the biggest reason that Colorado fell in the infrastructure category. And the other thing that's going on is, I mentioned shovel-ready sites, which is something that businesses are now demanding, and a lot of states have gotten really proactive about that in certifying sites and having sites that are ready to pitch to companies that are looking for places to set up shop. Colorado lags behind in that measure considerably, really doesn't have a good program like that going on. And so those are the issues that really hurt Colorado this year and took you down from a state that was traditionally in the top tier to a state that's now kind of sitting in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, so what I'm hearing, Scott, is, we're very proud of our airport. We got such a great infrastructure, but it takes more than that these days, especially as it relates to the ability to attract employers to our state. So infrastructure was a huge area that, really we saw a big drop in. Another area I think of interest, Scott, is this combination of high living cost and heavy regulations and whether it's actively forcing companies to take their jobs to other states. We heard recently with Palantir moving from Colorado to South Florida. How much of that factor into Colorado's drop?
Well, it's important. It's something that Colorado historically has not done great on. Colorado is a relatively high-cost state and a state that has more regulations than a lot of other states. So that's been sort of consistent. I think we have a business friendliness category that is increasing somewhat in importance. Cost of living is always something that is important. It's something that we look at. It's certainly something that companies look at. And these are issues that Colorado historically has struggled with, but there have always been so many other things that outweigh that and propel you into the top tier. Whereas this year, that infrastructure category, and there's also some economic issues in terms of long-term liabilities and just the budget reserves in the state that again, historically have not been great for Colorado, but economy has become more important as a factor in business climates, and certainly is something that we look at.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to some of the silver linings that did come out of your recent study. But before we do, I think we all like to kind of look at what others are doing around the country. And Ohio came in number 1. North Carolina, which by the way is my home state, came in number 2. When folks in Colorado look at other states and how they ranked very well in this rankings, what are some of the lessons learned you think other states might take from what the winning states, if you will, did so well?
Sure. And Ohio is a really interesting story. Number one for the first time. It broke into the top five last year. When we first started doing this study back in 2007, Ohio was really kind of the quintessential Rust Belt state. It ranked 30th. It dropped to 34th, I think, in around 2014. And then it just did this sort of slow climb up. And what they did was they focused on costs for sure. They focused on targeting industries. That's something that's been a big deal in Ohio. It's become much more of a tech-friendly state. And Ohio is very inexpensive. Some will say that you get what you pay for in a lot of ways. Wages are low in Ohio, and that's one of the reasons it's an inexpensive state to do business in. And Ohio is, because infrastructure has become so much more important, and really not just the last couple of years, but really probably the last 6 or 7 years. Ohio is centrally located. It does have very good infrastructure. Not the best in a lot of areas. They have issues as well with power generation and things like that, but they're working on that. And Ohio, this is maybe a double-edged sword, but Ohio is building what may wind up being the largest data center in the world, and you know all about what's going on with data centers. That's on federal land, and it's less to do with what the state is doing than some of the federal initiatives. But they have the power to power it.
Yeah.
A lot of backlash in Ohio over that, but anyway, that's been an interesting thing. And North Carolina, really quickly, your home state, they have been on a roll the last several years. They've been the top 1 or 2 state in our studies since 2022, I think. But in any case, they do very, very well. Very strong workforce, low costs, low regulation. They have some issues though with cost of living for sure, because they're growing so much, but a great workforce, which is something that they have in common with Colorado, which has an outstanding workforce.
I will say, Scott, it's good to see that we did very well in workforce here in Colorado, and we know we have a great, smart, brilliant workforce and technology and innovation with things happening in quantum and other areas around the state. Scott, we got to run. I want to thank you again for joining us. The data is clear, and Colorado still has world-class talent, but if we don't fix our affordability and infrastructure issues, we risk being left behind. Scott Cohn with CNBC, thank you for your insights. And by the way, congratulations on 20 years of America's top states for business. Coming up at the 11 o'clock hour, we shift gears to the World Cup and how global soccer fans poured cash into local Colorado bars. For the 9 News Business Buzz, I'm Ryan Frazier. See you soon.